The streets of Ravenswood were shrouded in an eternal twilight, as if the town itself was reluctant to surrender to the darkness of night. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and the trees creaked in an unsettling melody that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest residents. It was a place where the veil between reality and the unknown was thin, where the rational and the irrational coexisted in an uneasy harmony. Ravenswood's old library stood as a testament to the town's macabre charm, its stone facade weathered to a moss-covered grey that seemed to blend seamlessly into the surrounding landscape. The windows were narrow slits that glowed with an otherworldly light, as if the books within were exerting a strange pull on the outside world. As the wind died down, the silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the occasional distant howl of a wolf. Inside the library, the air was thick with the scent of old paper and leather bindings. The librarian, Emily, sat at her desk, surrounded by stacks of dusty tomes that seemed to stretch up to the vaulted ceiling. Her eyes were fixed on a single book, its cover a deep, blood red that seemed to absorb the faint light that filtered through the windows. The title, The Whispering Dark, was etched in silver letters that seemed to shimmer with a malevolent energy. Emily's fingers trembled as she opened the book, releasing a faint whisper that seemed to carry on the wind. The words within were written in a language she couldn't understand, but the images that accompanied them were all too clear. She felt a creeping sense of dread as she turned the pages, each one revealing a new, unspeakable horror that seemed to sear itself into her mind. As the night wore on, Emily became increasingly entranced by the book, her eyes scanning the pages with an unnatural speed. The words seemed to shift and change, revealing new meanings that were both tantalizing and terrifying. She began to feel a presence around her, a cold, watching gaze that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The wind outside began to pick up, rustling the leaves and creaking the old wooden beams of the library. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she felt the presence closing in, its malevolent energy swirling around her like a vortex. She tried to close the book, but her fingers seemed rooted to the page, unable to tear themselves away from the unspeakable horrors that lay within. As the night wore on, the shadows in the library grew longer and darker, twisting into grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe and twist on the walls. Emily's breathing grew more rapid, her eyes fixed on the book as if transfixed by some unseen force. She felt herself being drawn into the world within, a world of darkness and terror that seemed to have a mind of its own. The words on the page began to blur and change, revealing a message that seemed to be addressed directly to Emily. It was a message of warning, a desperate plea from some unknown source to turn away from the horrors that lay within. But Emily was transfixed, her mind consumed by a hunger for knowledge that seemed to drive her forward, no matter the cost. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Emily's eyes snapped back into focus, her mind reeling from the horrors she had witnessed. She felt a sense of relief wash over her, but it was short-lived, for as she looked down at the book, she saw that the pages had changed, revealing a new, terrible truth. The words on the page were now written in her own hand, a message of invitation that seemed to emanate from some dark, malevolent force. Emily's heart sank as she realized that she was no longer reading the book, she was writing it. The words on the page seemed to leap out at her, a cold, calculating message that seemed to reveal a terrible truth. Emily's eyes widened in horror as she realized that she was not the reader, she was the author, and the book was not a work of fiction, but a record of her own, terrible deeds. And as the sun rose over Ravenswood, casting the town in a bloody, golden light, Emily's eyes seemed to fade to black, her mind consumed by the horrors that she had unleashed upon the world. The book, The Whispering Dark, lay open on her desk, its pages filled with the unspeakable secrets of a mind that was no longer sane.